Hey guys, Jake from Michigan. I know we still have a few guys out there trying to get the job done. Like Lee down in Tennessee, I'm pretty sure he's only halfway through his firearm season, and Josh is still waiting for the rut to show up down in Georgia. But here in Michigan, we are into the 2024 habitat season. So in today's video, I want to share with you guys a quick tip, something easy that you can do to take your plan from the drawing board and lay it out onto your property with survey flags and flagging tape. Regardless of how you have your plan drawn up, whether it's on a computer, whether it's on a poster board, piece of paper, and regardless of how it was put together, whether you had a professional do it or you did it yourself, there's going to come a time where you're going to need to take that plan and use it to start creating the habitat improvements on your property. And one thing that I really like to do, and I do on all of my properties, is I use survey flags and flagging tape to lay out or outline certain improvements. And that's what I want to talk to you guys about in today's video, are the reasons why and a few improvements that you can use these for. The first habitat improvement that I really like to lay out with either survey flags or flagging tape are food plots. And it doesn't really matter where the food plot is located, where am I trying to put in this food plot on my property, whether I'm trying to install a food plot on already open ground in open field, or I'm trying to create a food plot within the open hardwoods, within the cover. I really like to use survey flags to outline or shape my food plots before I actually start doing the work. I'm a visual guy. I really want to see what something is going to look like before I actually start creating it. And with a food plot, these survey flags make it really easy to show you exactly how that food plot is going to work through the area. Using these survey flags or flagging tape to lay out the outline of your food plot, whether it's an open hardwoods or an existing open field, has a lot of advantages. The first, like I said, you can visualize what this food plot is going to look like. The second is, depending on your property size, you might need to squeeze in a few different improvements around this food plot, whether that's a travel corridor, bedding area, or more importantly, your access. So using access as an example, you can easily see how close is the edge of this food plot to your access. And for me personally on this property, I don't want my access getting any closer than about 50 yards from the edge of this food plot. So if I know that my property line is about 60 yards in this direction to the north, then I don't want my food plot to ever get any closer as it winds through this area than about 50 yards. So I can wiggle my food plot through here, but I don't want the closest point to ever be more than 50 yards from my access. And by using survey flags, once you have the outline or the shape of your food plot established, and for me, one thing that I wanted to make sure that I was doing is making sure my food plot was no closer than 50 yards from my exterior access. Once it's laid out, I don't have to worry about that again. I mean, let's be honest, I'm not going to cut all of these trees down in a couple days. This is going to be an ongoing project for me. And who knows, maybe if I didn't have the food plot laid out the way I do with these survey flags, I could come in here and make a mental mistake and cut too close to my property line, potentially pushing deer closer to the property line. And I just touched on another benefit to using these survey flags to outline or shape your food plot, especially within the hardwoods here. Now I know which trees I need to focus on. Just to give you guys an idea of which way you're facing here. You guys are facing west, south is this way, north is this way. So I know that as I follow my survey flags, the edge of my food plot, I need to focus on everything obviously within the center of my food plot, get all those trees down to get maximum sunlight, and I need to focus on trees on the south side of my food plot. The trees on the north side of my food plot, I am not as concerned with initially. If I want to maximize this food plot, that means that I need to have full sun, which means cutting down all the trees within the center of the food plot and again on the south side of the food plot. I'm not going to be too worried or placing emphasis on the trees on the north side of my food plot, because taking a few of those down isn't going to help me as much as taking trees down on the south side of my food plot. So by using these survey flags or flagging tape to outline the borders of your food plot, you can save a lot of time from cutting any unnecessary trees. Another huge benefit to using these survey flags to lay out the foundation or the borders of your food plot prior to doing any of the work is you can better see, will this food plot move deer through the property as intended? For example, is this more of a travel plot? Are you trying to lead deer to a larger food source? Or maybe you're trying to connect two different travel corridors with a food source. Or maybe you're trying to hook deer or steer them around a property corner away from a neighbor who's encroaching too close to the property line. or maybe this food plot is trying to move deer past a certain stand location, a certain tree. And so you have several edges that you want to come together right near a certain tree, similar to a turkey foot food plot design. By taking some time to lay out your food plot, you're going to have a much better idea as to whether or not this food plot is going to move deer through your property as you had intended. To give you guys another personal example from this property and why the food plot is shaped the way it is, I'm trying to move deer from behind the camera to the east, behind me to the west. And so as deer kind of move into this area, there's a deer trail that kind of leads right into this food plot, and I can use this food plot as an edge and move them to the west. So I can see, does this food plot lead right back to that deer trail, and can I connect this food plot to the travel corridor on the other side of the food plot, all while staying at least 50 yards away from my access. Now, obviously, I have not worked on this area yet, which is why I wanted to show it to you in this video. This is what it would look like prior to me cutting the trees down, prior to me installing the food plot. But now I want to take you to an area of this property where I had previously laid out survey flags, previously shaped a food plot, and kind of show you guys what that looks like after the food plot was put in. So we just moved locations to hopefully give you guys a better idea as to what this would look like, after some work has been done. So we moved about 80 yards to the west from where we were just filming, but this is the same section of my property. This is the same north section or north side of the food plot from where we just were. And in the center here, this is the food plot that I'm currently working on. It still has a lot of work to do. I want to put in some switchgrass screening along the outsides, but yeah, it takes a little bit of time to put in each improvement. But this is where we're at right now. And because we have these survey flags, it really allows me as the landowner to stay focused and know where I need to spend time. I do not need to take very many trees down on the north end of my food plot. Most of the sunlight is going to be coming from this way, so I need to focus on taking trees down in the center and on the south side. I elected to not take down these large red oaks. Instead, I girdled them. I don't think you can see it because it's going to be out of focus, but each one of those red oaks in the center of my food plot has been double ringed. So they're dead. They're going to come down eventually. I'll take them down when I have more time. But that still allows full sunlight into this food plot, and I didn't have to waste time taking trees down on the north side of my food plot or girdling trees on the north side. I just had to focus on my line right here and do everything in the middle and everything on the south side. Another benefit for me as the landowner was I was able to make sure that this food plot never got too wide. Remember, this is a travel plot. I'm trying to move deer from behind the camera to behind me, vice versa, depending on the time of day. And so I don't ever want this food plot to be too wide. So I wanted to make sure that this never got any wider than about 20 yards. And then over time, I'm going to fill in the sides with, again, a switchgrass screen, maybe 2.5 yards on each side. So my food plot is not going to be any wider than 15 yards, and it's going to stretch maybe 100 yards. So it's going to move deer from one side of my property to the other. And by using these survey flags, I can mark both sides of my food plot to really see how these deer are going to move through the area, and does this make sense? Am I too close to my property line? Is it wide enough? Is it too wide? There's a lot of things that you can see and confirm by marking your food plots out with these survey flags. So guys, that's just a quick tip, something very easy, very inexpensive that you can do to help you bring your food plots on your plan to life. I get the survey flags and the flagging tape from Tractor Supply, Ace Hardware, Family Farm and Home. I'm pretty sure they all carry them. They're not very expensive. You can also order those on Amazon if you want to. But yeah, survey flags and flagging tape to outline the edges of your food plot. But we're going to head over to one more habitat improvement that would greatly benefit from being marked or laid out with either survey flags or flagging tape. The next habitat improvement that I really like to lay out with either survey flags or flagging tape would be the deer trails or the travel corridors on your property. And these could be existing deer trails that you're trying to strengthen, or new travel corridors that you're trying to create on your property. I really like to lay these out with either survey flags or flagging tape. And there are a lot of similar reasons that we already talked about with food plots that I like to lay out the deer trails as well. But I'll talk about a few that we didn't talk about. And a lot of it has to do with just trees blocking your trail. We want these areas to be thicker so these deer feel comfortable moving down these trails during daylight. So in order to do that, especially in an open hardwood setting, we're going to need to take down trees. And eventually, because I don't really fight tree lean, a tree is going to fall over my deer trail. And that's what we do when we're trying to direct or steer deer around a certain area, is we'll block their path. So if we're trying to encourage movement down a certain trail, we don't want to be blocking that movement by having trees laying down across the trail. And depending on how many trees you're cutting down, it might be hard to figure out where the trail actually was, especially if you're doing this in the winter. As you start taking these trees down, the deer are going to stop taking that trail, and it might be harder to kind of see where that was supposed to go. So by laying this out first with flagging tape or survey flags, you will always know exactly where that trail was supposed to go. Just like with food plots, a lot of these improvements take time, whether you're trying to create a deer trail, or maybe you're trying to create a pinch point near your stand location, or maybe you're cutting a bedding area just to the side of the deer trail. You're not going to get all of the work done in one day. You're going to come back for several weekends, maybe, depending on the improvement. And again, if you start dropping a lot of trees, whether it's from your deer trail creation, bedding area creation, you're creating a pinch point, and it starts blocking the path, you could very easily lose sight of where that path was supposed to go. And initially, there's a reason that you picked that trail, whether you're trying to use and strengthen an existing trail or you're trying to create your own corridor. There's a reason you picked it. So I would recommend, and if it was me, I would be laying out those deer trails, those travel corridors, to make sure, one, it makes sense, and two, so you always know where that trail is when you eventually need to cut trees that are blocking it. But guys, that's going to do it for today on how you can use survey flags and flagging tape to bring a few of your improvements to life. Hopefully it didn't take too long. If you guys do have any questions, please drop those in the comment section below, and please let us know if we can help you change your property for good.